And I should be requesting those depletion reports then from the distributor.
Distributors, 100%. That's your Bible basically. That's your performance report, and not just for knowing how they do. You should know who are your top retail accounts, because when you do market work, coming to your market work question, what you want to do is first have your 70 accounts planned. Which are you going to see? 25 would be your top 25 customers. You have to go and say hello and thank them as well. Good to have you guys here. So thank you for joining me here. I think many of you are an overseas brand as well. So we may have from different parts of the world. So good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're from. Thank you again for joining. Just a little bit of context about me for people who don't know on my experience. I built my own wine business. I had 10 private label brands. So I built that from 0 to 100,000 cases in 5 years. I've done a lot of door knocking, a lot of distribution, proper, literally what you guys are all about, like what you're facing. I've done it, and I've built brands as well. Those are my own brands. So it's not like I was an importer. It was my private label brands. So I understand your view as a supplier. I also ran a wholesale operation. I owned a wholesale distribution house, in Delaware and also New Jersey. So I also understand that business. So really from the wholesaler's point of view as well, I truly understand what they're looking for and how they operate as well, because I was one of them. So I have a good understanding on why I can say some things in a very direct and practical way. And last not but the least, just about 12 months ago, I also launched my own gin brand again to get back a little bit for the UK market, not the US, but I wanted to do something in UK again. So I'm facing the same kind of things. I know what it sounds like on the street, what it sounds, from the distributors, and let's just dive into some of the practicality of our business. I will be going as fast as I can because almost 40 brands have different questions for me. So I'll try to cover as much as I can fast, and then we'll have some panelists, as Ankita said. Also, I've tried to curate some questions which are different, so there is a broader perspective and speed. Why? Because if we can get the point, if there is a deeper conversation, you can always email me for a deeper insight on how to go. But we'll try to wrap up as fast as we can, and I'll go direct to the point. And not polish up, and I'll talk direct as much as I can. Cool. So I'll go to the next slide. So I've already spoken about me, right? So let's go right Q&A mode. So why do major corporate grocery stores only take on brands by national distributors, but distributors won't pick up brands that have national corporate presence? So I'll break this question into two different questions, because one can be, for big chains, you need big distributors. And for big distributors, you need big chains. So that's the chicken and egg problem. But this question particularly is, if I'm approved by Kroger's or Walmart, small and medium-sized distributors don't want to entertain my brand. Okay. So, and why do big chains do want you to work with big distributors? Okay. So let's go in some of the notes. The main reason why big grocery national chains, even the regional chains, even the small chains, like which are not really small, like Total Wine or Bevmo, really prefer big distributors for this four main reason. The vendor setup, the whole, setting up your profile as a vendor, setting up your SKUs, a lot of things happen at the head office level. So that has to be a very streamlined process for them. And if you create friction there, it is a big no, right? So they also have to adhere to a process because, they have many choices, even in the process, right? And those choices are really good ones, like either Budweiser or Miller. So imagine who are us. So they have good choices who can adhere to their process, number one. Second, the marketing of the brand can be discussed at national and regional level instead of at store level. So they prefer a discussion where they can simply say, okay, let's roll this out in Southern Network or InBev Network or Coors Miller Network or, RNDC Network and so on. So it's very important where these distributors act more of a fulfilling houses whereas the big deals are happening between the suppliers and the chains. For example, if you're talking about, let's say, Yellowtail or Josh Sellers, right? So the importer slash the supplier is actually doing the programming and the merchandising deal, but the distributor is simply fulfilling, and going there and following the process. So for that, it is very, again, easy if it's just one process is rolled out in that distribution network. And then the third, last one is the merchandising. Big distributors really are very good at merchandising. They have the budget and they understand the game, especially the beer guys. They really, really understand the game of merchandising, which is super, super important for these chains. So these are the main reasons why big grocery chains or supermarket chains, or even like big regional or like stores like Devmo and Total Wine really prefer a big distribution network or a big distribution house to service them. Now, going to the other question where you say, but some distributors don't like it and they don't pick up the brands that are approved into this big chains. How I would tackle this is, you go to, if your goal is really a national brand or 100,000 cases, for example, you would ultimately need regional chains and this big accounts because that's where the volume is. So you will have to play your cards in a strategic way. What I did personally was, I could have 2 to 3 different distributors. One was just my clearance house. One was just my clearance partner, where they were just fulfilling Total Wine orders, for example, in a couple of stores in New Jersey, a couple in Maryland, and a couple in Delaware, right? So they were simply taking $10 a case to fulfill an order, and Total Wine used to work with them because they were a Budweiser distributor and they were used to working with them. But my wines were also in other distribution house, which was actually doing the hard sale and door knocking and actual distribution, right? So you can divide that as long as you are very clear and transparent to both distributors. This is your function, this is your function, and you are clear in which is your territory or which are your customers. And if they allow contractually, you can have this sort of strategy. But you will ultimately have to have this path where you start with the small, then you will have a chicken and egg problem where the big accounts will want to work with big houses and you will have to navigate and move your brands there. Do you recommend the Spirits direct sales channel? I think Nate had a few more questions, so I'll just go in his next slide. When is the right time for a Spirits brand to explore Spirits direct? How is the new age of sales for brands different today than it was 10 years ago? All right, cool. So let's break this down into a few things. My answer would be to do everything, right? And I'll go over some business models that are for today, right? The traditional distribution models are pretty much very hard and done, so you will have to do a lot of different business models to get your brand distribution, get your brand sales activated at all levels. So let's go into some models and you will understand how you can play this direct to Spirits game, which in one way is, yes, you are doing direct sales as well, but at the same time, there are different models you'll have to work with, right? So I'll just I'll put some company names and I'll explain you the business model so you will understand that you can start working with these companies without waiting for an importer or distributor. And at the same time, you can have importers and distributors and also keep doing this because this is building your D2C game through the distribution network. So Speakeasy is one company where you can register with them and then they will be able to give you your own wholesale network where the orders will go to that wholesaler and they will fulfill to the retailer if a retailer request, if a consumer request, let me give you an example. So if anyone is buying your product in Maryland, end consumer, right, and they bought it from X store, what really happens is that X store is going to send that order to that X distributor of that state, which you can select and tell to Speakeasy. So that way your own distributor gets some business and then that order is fulfilled in a compliant way. Then comes LibDib. This is, again, a good model where the same is stopped at distribution level. So LibDib is a network of distributors that will clear your product, right? So literally the name means liberal distribution. So over here, basically, you don't need to wait for state distributors as long as you have an importer or a way to get into that model, which is the next one, which is Park Street or MHW. You can literally register your brand in LibDib and then start knocking doors at retail yourself. So you do the selling there and you have access to all this 40, I think they have almost 40 states that you can knock doors at. So your retail is open, it's on you, and those orders are going to be fulfilled by limited distribution network. Again, these are clearance models, but legally you are open to go and knock doors in retail. MHW and Park Street is a classic one more tier down model where they act as an importer and you run the show. You pick your distributors, you register behind the scene, you do the retail, or if you don't want to do the retail, your distributors do the retail, but you can use this model as well where MHW and Park Street is there. What I did was pretty much everything, and I'm talking about almost 10 years ago still, right? So even today, it's even tough to get traditional distributors. So you have to do everything where you have MHW, you start knocking doors at retail where they have the licenses. For example, MHW and Park Street have wholesale licenses as well in about 4 states like Illinois, New York, the big ones, right? So you don't need to find a distributor there. You can yourself start knocking doors in the retail because they also have a retail license. And then you find some states where they don't have the retail and you start finding distributors and you sort of start navigating that. So I think D2C, also coming back on that main question, direct to consumer is very, very hard to build than what you think. So my Coca brand, my gin brand is exactly a D2C play that I wanted to do in UK. And it's very tough, irrespective of we having big consumer assets like London Drinks Guide, where we have a lot of drinks enthusiasts of London. It's very hard for me to even sell 100 cases a month in D2C, whereas traditional model, all your effort, you're actually selling thousands of cases, every month in the same effort and money, right? So you always will have to compare that same energy, same 8 hours a day, if you put in traditional model versus D2C, where is the bigger ROI? And so far, personally, I think D2C is a big game at valuation or end consumer. You need a lot of money than you think to build a proper sustainable business in D2C. How does a small brand sell to a few large and high volume on-premise accounts instead of many low volume accounts? I think pretty much you just have to, give large deals. Here are some things like basic. I'm sure a lot of give deals, give exclusive. Private labels is one way, exclusive buys. And then you do what pretty much Gallo does. You got to buy the whole thing out, you got to put in their menus, you got to buy them bar merchandise, you got to pretty much redo the shelf if they want, you got to buy a new refrigerator, do whatever it takes if you really want that sort of volume in less, accounts. So if you want 50 cases a month depletion ratio, for example, you will have to do a lot of things where they just breathe your brand. They are just going to talk about your brand when they hand sell, when they house pour, every single touch point you have to see, and then you have to give money to get that programming, and you have to be there. It is a clean profit story for a high volume account. When you're talking about busy bars, nightclubs, or high volume restaurants, it is really money game. Basically, you have to sell the profit story, and you need to have some things like Magnum, screw cap. Those are some basics which have to be there for high volume approach. How do I deal with distributors? I think Zareen is here. So Zareen, next couple of questions are yours. Do you want to just ask verbally, audio, if you want?
Well, sure. I'm sitting with an issue. The distributor is pretty small, and it's a wine distributor based out of Georgia. They actually specifically went and got a license to sell spirits, my brands, and now I'm having this huge problem. They wanted to branch over into spirits from the wine world. Basically, that's what happened, and they chose my brand. So I'm having real difficulty getting payment from them. So so far they've bought a pallet, like 1,000, like 90 cases, and no payment, going on 4 months. So I'm not sure what to do. I'm being given totally different information. Go see an attorney, report them to the liquor board. I'm really not sure.
Yeah. So, I've seen that rodeo and burnt a lot of money. So I'll tell you what I did and what normally people do. The real answer is you can't do much, especially for a pallet. The lawyers are not affordable for a pallet. So what you will have to do is have to do a strategic play. And here are a few things that you can do. One is you have to understand that what is the inventory sitting in their warehouse. So for example, if they've sold half to the retail and half is left, number one thing, what you want to do strategically is, hey, if they're just not responding, it's a completely different story. But let's say if they're picking up the phone or at least answering email, you say, I'm coming down there. Let me help you resell more. And if you can actually drive, I would just, this is a complete non-legal advice. But I would put whatever goods are in their warehouse in my car. So I would start minimizing. That's what I did, right? I would just say, all right, let me pick this up and give you a credit note against, your outstanding invoice. So first of all, you got to pick the stuff out and let's say minimize the loss there. Second is you have to strategically say, all right, I'm going to come there and do some store tastings and make sure that if the 70% of the cases, usually this is when the products don't sell or see sell-throughs or are collecting dust at their customers and so on, right? So what I would say is I would come there and do store tastings and make sure that your retailers release your payments for my invoices. And then I'll invest this through 2 to 3 days. Let's blow this out. And you write me a post-dated check. All right, John, so do I have your commitment? I'm coming there, you post me a post-dated check and I'm coming there, right? And so on. So you try to give them a pressure that you are coming there in a helping way, right? You're going to move them, you're going to help. Yep, sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Also on this, with the same distributor, they are my online avenue, pretty much. So they're also distributing in Tennessee, and I know that they are selling. So I don't want to burn this bridge because
I know, but that's the thing.
Directing traffic.
That the reality is there are two things you have to put it in black and white. Number one is you can't give them another order without the old invoice is clear, right? You got to understand that, otherwise you're going to be out of business soon. So you have to understand that you will have to ask them at one point or the other that you got to clear that old invoice. And I understand that you want to ask that at the right time when that PO comes, for example, and so on, right? But you have to smell this thing, and you already know the answer that they are a bad payer and it's not a right company. But so slowly and strategically, you got to move out from there or make a strict policy that, John, your last invoice, it was a very stressful situation for me. So now I need you to sign this credit note or personal guarantee or have a advance payment, but somehow you need to throw that hard bullet to smell the bullshit, because what's going to happen is usually when you go a little hard, you will face the reality and they'll say, Zareen, your product is, pick it up or whatever. You will see the realities coming out, or they will completely stop answering your thing, because right now they are just not going to do anything. And I know for a fact that main reason is if they are either going out of the business, that can be a possibility. So you rather go fast. But if they are in the business, then your product is not moving, is another possibility. And the third is basically where they have a genuine cash flow issue where they are paying to someone whose products they need, and they are waiting for that order, and you are last in the line, right? But you got to do something. You will have to do something. You can't just wait. You will have to understand that you have to minimize your loss. You have to go there physical. And at that time you say, I need to solve this. Only then I'll go. And most of the time, 50% of the times you will get that post-dated check at least.
Okay.
And all right, beyond this, what you can do, the obvious other things, what people do, and I did, is when things are bad, right? When it's all done and dusted, when that relation is ended, then you give them to the collection agency. Collection agency will take 20%, but at least they will harass them and they'll keep calling them. And then they'll set up payment plans. So for example, if the invoice is $8,000, at least the final outcome would be $800 a month for 12 months and so on. And we settled at $4,800. But at least there will be some sort of conclusion done through collection agency, and a contract will be done, and all that will be legal because they have in-house lawyers. You don't have to spend, for $10,000 and so on. Like I had $250,000, which I lost, Zareen, when literally, right? So even I could not afford lawyers. I just had to use collection agencies. So lawyers are just going to be very, very expensive unless you find a commission-based lawyer who's expert into collections and is going to be ready to collect money when you get money. There are some lawyers like that as well.
Okay.
ABC, you can't do anything about. So I've tried everything. Let me complain this to ABC or write. I've literally written legal emails to New Jersey TTB saying this guy has not paid me, that guy has not paid me. Can you look at their licenses? Can you see the way they do business? I try to threaten the guy saying that you do this and that. I'm going to go to ABC, right? But ABC just doesn't entertain. ABC is for retail, right? So, or another thing which you can do is if you have a friend in the retail, you can sort of play that game where they buy all your inventory and then you use that retailer friend to sort of say, hey, pay Zareen first and then I'll release your check and so on. So I've tried all angles.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
But I think you'll have to do something. So your next question, I mean, I've written it here, but same things. Call them, get small installments, don't sell anymore, collection agency, follow up softly, and so on.
Yes, thank you for that.
If you can drive, take the car and get all your stuff,
all the way to Georgia.
It depends on the fuel cost versus your invoice. So your second question was, I signed up with a distributor in New Jersey who does not have a sales team, right? And I have to sell to retailers myself. Cool. So this I think we'll cover, but pretty much this is like a traditional. You just have to knock doors, right? That's what you're asking. How do I sell to retail?
Yeah.
So have you sold to retail before? Like, have you knocked doors in yourself?
In the state of New York, yes, and direct to consumer. I've been selling for a few months at these wine festivals, so that's pretty easy. It's people taste it and they buy it pretty much.
Yeah.
So a retailer requires a lot of in-store promotional materials. Do you go in, right off the bat and say, these are the promotional materials, these are the samples? Or do you set it up where one store at a time, you're going in and doing tastings because that's when the product sells?
So basically, what you need to do is, for example, in New Jersey, I had this exact same thing where they were just there and I was doing the selling. So you need to have a sales process there. You need to, I believe, I remember you live in New York or New Jersey, I think somewhere there, right?
In New Jersey, yes.
Yeah, so for you, it's just a normal exact thing. Like you need to have a disciplined sales process like a rep. So you need to have 60 accounts a week, 60 retailers a week. You are going to do a route. You need to plan a route. Monday, I'm in East Windsor. Tuesday, I'm in Edison, then Cherry Hill, South, and so on. You need to have a route. You need to have 10 accounts a day, and you need to have your 50, 60 a week that you need to start doing and knocking and building up accounts. And you need to start building your regular retailer. You need to think that you are a sales rep for New Jersey. And then you will face all the things that a sales rep faces, and which is a complete separate detailed conversation. Some of the things I'll answer later on, so it will get covered on how to do a good cold call and so on.
Yes. So thank you. So we're a non-alcoholic spirits company, well known in Quebec. We're based in Quebec City, and all across Quebec, our distribution is pretty great. We have really growing market in Toronto, Vancouver, and Winnipeg. That's like our three places that they are the most busy right now. We have some distributors there for sure, and the rest of Canada is starting to pick them up. But what would be your best recommendation to start growing a community in the US? More on the type, because people know like the brand in Quebec for the vibe that it's bringing to it, and we're also part of another company that are making cocktail syrups, but it's not available in the US. So like when we're doing a trade show, for example, in Quebec, everybody knows like the main brand, and they're starting to know the non-alcoholic spirit part of the brand. But for example, would you focus on trade shows or doing like restoration shows, or just going to do some I would say just doing some prospection in bars, just like coming there and talking to people what they like and present them the products and everything, like we're doing a little bit? But what would be like the main focus? Because we're starting to get some people in California and New York really interested in our products.
curious about. It's not a Canadian accent for sure.
Yeah, it's actually from a French Canadian too as well. So that's why it's sorry if my accent
Nice.
is not perfect.
Nice. Cool. So I think you are in a good spot, right? Like non-alcoholic category is booming. I think the consumers are building up as well. So for sure, you need to sort of put acceleration, right? You need to penetrate. You need to grow footprint as much as you can. I think till what I understand, and for you, it's wild west. Like you can knock doors and fulfill your own orders. So even the laws don't apply, so which is good things as well. So there are many different things you can do, basically, right? What I would suggest is, again, pretty much, your goal should be to go into a big, like if you're a big successful brand, then you start thinking big for America, right? So in your case, I would think of InBev or like Budweiser network to go into, so let the whole Budweiser guys take your brand, or Coors Miller network. I would choose beer guys, let's say first, in your case, other than the Southern and Glazer. But for sure, those, and then where do they hang out, right? So then there is NBWA, if you've heard of, National Beer Wholesalers Association, trade show is there. So then you know your community, right? And then at the same time, why I'm saying that is you can yourself knock on 7-Eleven, to grocery store, to anything. You will have you need a wider coverage. You with wine and spirits distributors, you're going to be limited to their accounts, which is just wine and liquor stores, whereas beer guys have 3 times bigger accounts they service normally because of the beer laws and all of that. So number one, that's amazing. You select beer network because you're going to overall have a bigger distribution. But again, the answer will be, again, doing everything yourself. So you yourself will start, like whatever market is closer, start getting feet on the ground, because you will understand that the reality, is very different than what you think. I've seen a lot of big brands in their own countries that you can be the biggest brand in whatever country, but when literally you'll have to start knocking doors and you go to that retailer of New Jersey or whichever retailer, there are just 5 basic questions: how much I'm going to make, why will someone buy this, do you have a consumer, are you going to send more footfalls? The same questions which you will also be facing when you start knocking doors to these accounts. Going back on the tactical answer, I think my answer would be beer network. NBWA is a trade show. That is a good one. And then that would be your big long goal. And then you start with the small beer wholesalers. You start picking them, and then you start knocking yourself in a couple of states to see and establish a footprint. And in your case, if you have a real success story, which you have, you should have getting national chains and regional chains and brand activation into this big and important accounts yourself, and that you use as a big selling point of what you will be bringing to the party, to the distribution network. So that would be my approach. And for sure, I mean, if you can participate, any activity that you can do is an ROI positive activity. In your case, it can be easily, because you don't worry about legal licenses. You can do that. So if a festival, you can pour your products and sell your cases, 5 cases, and if the stand costs $200, then you can do that. If a trade show, you can come to, let's say our trade show is Chicago USATT Trade Tasting, and if you're trying to tap into the Midwest market, you can come to USATT Trade Tasting, and that's for Chicago area. And you can, in your case, it's so amazing because a lot of brands will come to our trade show just to find importers and distributors, but you can actually talk to the sommelier, the bartender, to anyone who walks into that room. Even to the consumer, you can say, hey, here's my DM, installing, you can buy directly, and so on. So for you, every activity, in fact, can be an ROI positive activity. And I would do a little bit of everything, where as long as it's, my investment is coming out from that activity with the goal of this, national footprint goal. I hope I've helped you there.
That's perfect. Thanks a lot.
Cool. And sorry, one more thing over here was if you have money, the best way I've written here is buy the sales rep, buy the accounts. So for example, let's say if you're ready to invest $20,000 and get started with America, and you want to control your own distribution, let's say you want to control your own accounts, pick a state, you have a sales rep in your team, which has already been knocking doors, which has accounts, which has 80 accounts in there, good accounts, which for sure are going to take your brand, because the relationship between the rep and that retail accounts is very strong. So you technically buy 2 months of salary, you get these accounts, you get the business ready. And that's also one way to start, and then obviously the other traditional ways are getting the national importer and so on. But I would for sure aim big, because you're just next door and you can do a lot by traveling more to US, and until you have a big proper company, which can do similar volumes like you're aiming to get to from US.
Perfect.
I think you also asked
much.
someplace that to build end consumer. I would not waste money in any direct to consumer activity. First 12 months, I would for sure put all the money in getting trade activations, trade footprints, getting retail placements, and so on. Very basic question, but I think a lot of wineries and a lot of distilleries are, in this case, let's say, they are themselves the winemaker and the salesperson. So I do have empathy for what goes on in, like, how, on knocking doors and whatnot. So let me throw some answers here. What approach you should take by, this is a very good answer, by the way, in the question, which is you should start with neighboring states. That itself is an amazing thing. And small producers, so 1,200 cases. Obviously, you want to make sure that you don't run out of supply. So you want to make sure you first start with Texas, maybe, and then go to another state, and then go to another state, and so on, right? So that's a good strategy. And the answer would be how to find distributors. Let's say on the real question, just basics, Google, like wine distributors in Texas. You got to figure out your own size and species. You can't go with Southern, because they're just going to buy a pallet and then you'll be killed. So you rather, go with a small and medium-sized distributor who's ready, who respects your art, and then there is a synergy. The other couple of hacks is you need to open your competition website. So let's say similar size of winery next door, you need to go to the distribution page and see their distributor partners, and you will understand, what sort of distributors in that state you can really target. So I would find some distributors who are listed on, my competitive winery or some other wineries who are listed on the distributors page, who are in around 1,000 to 2,000 case volume. So you would get a very good idea, and then you pick up the phone. Literally, you pick up the phone and say, "Hey, you sell Sid's wine? I'm from Ankita Winery, so I'm just next door there, about 100 miles from there, and I've done this exact spiel, by the way. You sell this wine, and I'm 100 miles away from this, pretty much the same liquid, better pricing I can give you. Can I have an opportunity to present you?" And as long as the price is a little bit different, and if that retail is 18 and you are at 24, and that is a different tier that you fall into, distributors should entertain you, because you're again fulfilling a gap. Or maybe if you are a value player and they are a premium player, and so on. So that is another way. Then there are associations, like for example in Illinois, Wine and Spirits Association of Illinois, and they are a body of small and medium-sized distributors, right? Obviously, WSWA is a big boys and girls club, but then there are very small regional associations that you can message. You have a great winery hat, like not like us, like private label, which is even tougher. But you are a winemaker, a winery. A lot of people will open your door, especially if you are a winemaker calling or doing an email. So that will help you, because small and boutique wineries would surely want to sort of do business with you. Then trade shows. These are some simple things. And then TTB website as well. So I don't know if you guys know, but you can see all the new licenses that come on TTB website. So email me separately if you want on how this lists, where to find this kind of things. But you can see on TTB every single active permit of Missouri or Colorado, right? So you will see all the permits there, but you will have to yourself Google the company then. But at least that is the biggest database you can find if you're looking to sort of cold call and figure out what are the new companies coming out. And usually new companies are a good match, because they're building their portfolio. So, they may not have any wine from your state or your country, right? So it's a good chance that you are running the payment risk there, but at least it's a high chance that you are going to, get into them. What is the best approach when trying to get our wine on restaurants' wine list? So I think I have a video here from Jason Steffens. So I'm sure you all have heard about Yellowtail, Josh Sellers. So this is the person behind, this success stories. He is the head training coach for the importer Dodge and Sons there, and pretty much he is the one who educates the distributors and the sales reps on how to sell Yellowtail and Josh sellers. So let's hear what he has to say on how to sell into restaurants.
As Ankita had talked about, I spent 15 plus years in the distributor world, holding virtually every position you can hold in the distributor before coming over to the supplier side, and just really excited to talk to you all today about how to grow your business in the on-premise. So as we get going today, we're really all going to be talking about on-premise effectiveness. What are the 5 key on-premise capabilities? And I'm going to be diving into each one of these. And I know that today's session is going to be recorded, so you'll have a chance to be able to see this presentation again. But if you're taking notes, these are the big 5 elements that we're going to dive in to. One, first and foremost, how do you identify the right target accounts that are going to maximize your ROI, your return on investment as you're out working in the market? We're going to talk about how to pre-plan effectively to maximize your chances of success. We're going to talk about how to deliver a compelling sales presentation utilizing Sierra selling. Some of you may have heard that term before, very common in our industry. The 4th one is performing best-in-class execution with effective follow-through, making sure that what you have placed inside of those on-premise accounts is actually moving, whether we're talking about a wine or a spirit. And then lastly, we're going to talk about how to achieve maximum retention of your placements. So that if things are working, fantastic. Let's build upon that relationship and expand your distribution inside of that account. If things aren't working, don't wait for that restaurateur or that bar to come to you and tell you it's not working. Think proactively about how you're going to get behind that brand and be able to start to impact the business locally with the bartenders, with the wait staff, to make sure that you can get those reorders that everybody is craving. So those are going to be the 5 key elements that we're diving into here in the on-premise.
Advice on introduction and growth for quality wines from a lightly known but deeply established region, right? Like Georgia. So if you are, from, let's say, a boutique region or not so much popular brand name like Napa Valley or so on, what would you do? I think the answer is, again, in 2 slides, but one is very basic. Like, you will have to show your, passion, and then you will have to match this with who are the passionate retailers and the sommeliers and the merchants, the buyers who are passionate about the art, who are passionate about giving sunlight to different boutique regions, who are passionate about Georgian wines, for example. It can be as simple as that, right? How do you search? You can, again, search for, Georgian wine wholesalers, and then you can start there. You can search for, companies and accounts, that retail accounts that have bigger Georgian shelf. In fact, you can search for Georgian owned wine stores, and so on. So there are many ways, but at least if you first start there, that is a great section. Then if you're actually going and knocking doors yourself, and which I'm sure you all have to at one point, you will be doing market work or doing anything, you first go into Georgia section, and then you see that if they have a separate section for different regions, and in that, if they have a Georgian selection, and then you can sort of go and say that, hey, thank you so much for giving love to the Georgian wine section. I wanted to really help you grow this section and do a tasting and so on, right? So let's go on the other slide as well here, because that again is an answer to how do you sort of, cold call, and this will be for Zareen as well. This is for everyone. Like, how do you make an effective cold call into retail accounts? This is again from a couple of gentlemen here. Great people I admire, so let's hear them out. Tips and any advice that you have in your elevator pitch when sales reps are hitting bars or retail accounts. What's your take on that?
The number one thing that I would always say is, from a recommendation standpoint, is do your research. You really have to be aware. If you're just walking into somewhere and you're unconscious of what they're trying to deliver, the product they're trying to sell, the level of service they're trying to attain, and the level of products that they are using as part of their portfolio, then you're already setting yourself up to fail. The most important thing is do your research. Does your brand fit? Does your pricing fit? Does your support package fit what they're after as well? That's the most important thing. And then after that, I would say that there are a series of things to do afterwards. But first and foremost, do your research. Don't just walk in and go, yeah, we could work, we could not.
So basically, you want to make sure you qualify the account, right? Where your brand is a perfect fit. Otherwise, just don't waste your time.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
and don't waste their time, more importantly.
So for instance, for me, if I was a district manager over, let's say, the state of Florida, and I was walking into an account and meeting the buyer for the first time, I would shake their hand and say, "Hi, I'm Jason Steffens. I'm district manager for Deutsch Family Wine and Spirits for the state of Florida. I'm tasked with building relationships with the top 100 on-premise accounts in the state. And I just wanted to come in and talk to you today to see if it makes sense for us to do business." So within 20 seconds, my name, my title, right? Who am I? If I have brands that they might recognize, like I might say, you might recognize me from such brands as Josh Cellars, Yellowtail, Gray Whale, Gin, Cantera Negra, Tequila, and Redemption Whiskey. If that's going to help you, drop a couple of brands that you sell if you have market penetration. But you've got 25 to 30 seconds in that introduction, and it needs to come off like silk.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sid. I appreciate what you're doing, man.
Hi, Brian.
A lot of us out here trying to figure it out. I'm one of them. I come from the healthcare world, so to have somebody that opens the book like you do with all the knowledge, it's truly, truly appreciated. And if people aren't telling you that they appreciate it, man, I'm telling you right here, there's a lot of us. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
So yeah, I'm in Jersey and Connecticut right now. In Jersey, I self-distribute. I'm a non-alcoholic cocktail and mocktail mixer brand, ultra premium. I'm $20 on the retail shelf, so I have no competition. In Connecticut, I'm with Slocum and Sons. In New Jersey, Fedway basically just told me to go scratch Allied plays games, and I'm about to pick O-Pee-Chee, it seems like. But the question is, I want to be an on-premise brand where they're using me as their skinny spicy margarita or their mocktail menu. So on-premise placement is important to me. And forgive me, I'm loading my truck because I do this all myself if I'm out of breath. But I'm trying to figure out, is O-Pee-Chee going to get bullied by Fedway when Fedway comes in and buys the menu and does all that other stuff? And like, so should I be picking O-Pee-Chee or a smaller house, or should I try to play the game with Fedway, who also carries Fever Tree, etc.?
Tricky question.
It's a big question.
Yeah, you had one more as well, right? So let me see what you had. And if the answer, what is this? I did not understand, Brian. What was this?
And on, does a small house lose pool? Yeah, so this is the same thing. Is O-Pee-Chee going to get bullied out of my menu placement because Fedway is going to say, I'm going to give you quantity discounts on this, this, and this, but you need to take X as well. So that's that. And then to load the question for you even more, I have Ace Indigo interested in carrying me across like 7 states, but they're telling me that I have to tell Slocum and O-Pee-Chee, for example, that the restaurants are going to be dueled. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I do here? Is O-Pee-Chee going to tell me, no, that's not going to happen? You know, so there's a lot going on here for me trying to figure out with no experience.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's a classic, typical scenarios, right? And in your case, in fact, O-Pee-Chee is big. I mean, it's not, I thought you were talking about real small. O-Pee-Chee is a good house. So I think Fedway is for sure the main one there. I think I'm trying to figure out I mean, the main question is also, let's say, are you the one who got the retail accounts and placement? Like, do you have? Yes,
I've done it all. I've hand delivered and sold every single account in New Jersey.
So then isn't it better that you go into Fedway?
I mean, right now I'd have to beg and grovel because they're not treating me with respect, and O-Pee-Chee is. So my heart tells me to go with O-Pee-Chee, but I'm here to make money and grow the brand nationally and globally. So,
and you're worried that Fedway will sort of have their competitive products and you will be out if you stick with O-Pee-Chee.
I'm afraid that Fedway could bully me off menu placement. I mean, I'm the only mixer in the game that's saying you need, like, Trace Agaves does not say if you're using my margarita mix, it needs to say Trace Agaves margarita mix on the menu. And Dirty Pelican's coming in and saying you need to write Dirty Pelican on the menu. So it's very easy for O-Pee-Chee, for example, to come in and say, you got to do menu placement with Dirty Pelican. And then Fedway comes in with their lesser, nowhere near my quality product, but saying, hey, this is basically free. You can use it and hide behind the bar like you do every other mixer. And it's just easier.
Yeah,
and I'm going to lose. Yeah.
Understood. I think you should stick with OPG because, you will get one order from Fedway and they'll forget about you because their focus is you are just another growing brand. They will do whatever it takes to get you in. And that is a very classic case where, other distribution houses tries to take their competitive spots. They will sweet talk you that you come to my house and then that will be your last purchase order from them. So you rather stick with OPG and, I mean, today you're giving an example, by the way, Brian, of Fedway. Tomorrow you'll have XYZ brand. Day after tomorrow, there will be someone else. There will always be someone else, a bigger brand, trying to get who can buy out everything, right? So it's not really a problem of Fedway or something. Like Coca-Cola can come tomorrow and start some beverage as well, and they will start this, right? Forget about every brand is your competitor. So I think you don't want to spoil your current relationship with the account and your OPG guys, right? So I think I mean you will just it's a classic, typical market competitive problem. I mean, A or B, the retailer has a choice. Somehow retailer has to be kept on winning by you with the profit story, with the likability of you, and they will have your placements there. And the moment you will have enough consumers that are asking for your brand, and that's when the tables turn. Usually when the consumers start making sure that they are loyal to your brand, they just come in and grab your brand and then go. It's where super loyalty comes. That's where sort of you start engraving your brand into the menu placements, permanent menus, cocktails, and many other things. That's called like brand engraving, which I call in my own language, where you got to start playing that game, becoming more permanent, because the more you create friction for any account to change you, is a good strategy, right? So you start doing that as well. You can start that angles as well. But I think, I mean, it's tough answer, but I think, because why it's tough, because it's 40-60, it's 30-70, it's 59-41, and so on. It's not like just 0 and yes, right? So I think more follow what your gut and heart says, which is OPG, and then keep fighting for your space, which is everyone's everyday problem.
True, appreciate it. So what about the conversation then with the food service house, Ace Indigo, like a US Foods, where since I'm not out, I have this luxury, like you spoke on the Canadian brand, but they're telling me that they need to be able to do all states that they cover, which means I would now have to tell O-Pee-Chee that they're competing in the restaurants, and I would have to tell Slocum in Connecticut that they're competing at the restaurants, which these liquor houses obviously won't be happy about that.
US Foods is a big name drop you did. I mean, I would for sure. It's a home run, right? If you are getting a
well, it's Ace Indigo. Ace Indigo is like US Foods, but they're the Northeast, so they're Delaware, Maryland, all the way up to Maine.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing. Like it's a 100x bigger penetration you will get with this houses. They are in every single chain of America, and so what I would do is, if they don't have any such category into their portfolio, they want to get into this kind of category, especially non-alcoholic, right? They are trying to build their portfolio, like how beer guys started their spirits division. These guys are also starting, the food guys are starting the NA division and so on, because, this NA thing falls into the food buyer. Just so you know, when you go into the Wegmans or the Walgreens, the buying decision for NA is not by wine and spirits guy, it's by the food buyer in a lot of cases. So you have to understand, in the big chains, who is the buyer, where do this category fall into? Is it a food buyer or a wine and spirits buyer? So if the answer in majority is the food buyer, then I think US Foods for sure is a good strategical choice.
But they don't call on liquor stores, Ace Indigo. Ace Indigo is like of US Foods.
That's true. That's true.
So now I need O-Pee-Chee, I need Slocum to hit my liquor stores, but I want Ace Indigo because they're bigger and they're doing what you're saying. Sometimes, like at a Capitol Grill, this could fall under the food buyer rather than the bar buyer. But I don't want O-Pee-Chee to tell me they're not going to bring me on if I do dual, because now I lose my retail. So it's like, do I walk to the signing table with O-Pee-Chee and tell them, look, the restaurants are going to be dualed. I'm going to give you the restaurant accounts, but you're going to compete against USATT moving forward. And with Slocum, it's the same thing. Like, you already have the restaurant accounts, but now you got competition. And these are the first brands that took me in. So now I'm going to go to these people that showed me love as a young brand and say, hey, surprise, you're being dueled in the restaurants.
Let me take this separately, and I understand, because all the names that you're throwing are good names, and also I respect that you want to stick with the first person, and I would do the same thing. So I'm sure there are solutions, and then there are ways. But let me take this back, because this is a completely, I think you have a good problem basically. So it's hard sometimes to So let me write this by email to you, because it's a great every account and every company and every options that you have are good ones. So we got to be very careful. And if we think positively, I always think this way, that how everyone can get involved. So maybe there is a solution there as well. So let me think about it and send you that email.
Sid, thank you so much. And good luck to everybody on the dial on these tough days. Keep going. Keep going.
Adelaide, are you here?
Yeah. Yes, she is.
Hi, Sid. Thanks for taking my question. So I have a brand of cachaça based out of Miami, and we just recently were picked up by a new entrant in the distributor market to the state of Florida. They're the third largest distributor in the state of Texas. It's called Greenlight Distribution. And so I now have 11 sales reps across the state that have my brand in their portfolio. And since I've been kind of the primary face of the brand for the last 2 years, building relationships with Total Wine and some of the local retailers, and on a lesser extent, the on-prem, I was just wondering, what are some of the common ways to incentivize the distributor reps? And then as a follow-on part of the question, when it comes to work with, what kind of frequency would you recommend to actually doing and getting face time with the sales reps?
Great. I'll answer the last question first. Work with usually, I would say 2 a year. One is when your first order is going, let's say if it's a new distributor, for sure, in that launch week, and if it's an ongoing distributor, it is usually March, where retail is starting to open up again, the buying, right? So February last week or March first week for sure, and then September or October if you're lucky, because that's where you want to go back in your current accounts and talk bigger deals like 3Ks, 5Ks, 10K stacks, and so on. So October first week or March is an ideal time that you would want to give them in and plan in advance. And 2 is enough. And then if it's just, if you don't have much distributors and just 3 or 4 you're going to work with, you can increase if you can afford. And if they allow you, a lot of times they don't want more than 2 times, suppliers to come. Now coming to the distributor's rep. So first thing you got to make sure is the distributor owner is aware of this, I'm sure, right? So you want to run through them the commission structure or the bonus structure or whatever you're doing to incentivize, because you can't just make the reps and go out and take them for lunch while you're doing market work and sort of make side deals, and so on. So that is a big no, I would advise, because then the moment distributors know, even if you're helping them sell a lot, I think they take it in a bad way, that you're trying to work directly with the rep, and either they don't like you or their rep eventually, right? So let's assume that you are putting this program to the owner, to the distributor itself, that, hey, I want to roll this out to your guys, for example. So the classic things that you can do are this on this slide, right? So you can have new account placement incentive. That is one very good one. So you can say, all right, guys, so in March and in October, you have to have a yearly plan for the distributor's reps incentive. So let's say March and October, you say new account placements, because that's when you want to focus on new accounts. Then comes October and November, you say 3Ks and 10Ks and 25K stacks deals. So if any rep gets a 3Ks, they get a $50 Amex card. If a rep gets a 25Ks display, they get a $500 Visa card, and so on. So you come up with this month, the program, and the money, and you lay it out in the year plan. Then comes a flat sales rep, $5 a case. So what I did, for example, you got to play it out, right? So now let's say January and February are going to be slow months, right? So you say, okay, guys, here, $5 a case, January, February, just take my product out, go out and sell, do whatever it takes, but just keep my product in your bag. So that's $5 a case, for example. Now, or you can throw that in the launch month because you want maximum penetration as well. Then comes the annual goal. All right, John, if you sell 400 cases in a year, you can either, I'll take you to the winery, I'll take you to the distillery, or I'll give you a $500 Visa card or whatever it is, right? So you have an annual goal. Then you can do this trips, winery and distilleries if you can sort of, figure it out, or yourself, you can do something about it or give them an experience. That's something as well that you can do. A lot of sales reps value that. Secondary placement incentive. So this is something which not many people know, but big brands do it. So what does that mean? Okay, so you are in that phase where you've already penetrated the account. You are in your 200 accounts in that state, for example. The reps can't just take any more your products because they're shown to every of their 80 accounts, right? So what do you say? All right, so now guys, let's go and get secondary placements in April. February, March was done. Good, well done, good job. Now let's go for the secondary placement, which means you are on the shelf, get a 3K stack. You are on the 3K stack, get a white wine in the refrigeration. You are here, get a decal on the door, and so on. Get me a secondary placement in that account, and here's $50. You are in the menu, get me a house pour. So you plan that in May, for example. So you got to make a whole year and have different things. So every month they have this goal, and that goal is has to be worked around the market reality. Like, when is a good time for this? When is a good time for that? When is a good time for this, and so on. And then on your brand reality. So if I had 200 restaurants where my wines were there and I had just 2 house pours, then I would throw in. And this can be random. Some incentives, just keep it random. For like next month, guys, we're going to do house pour incentives. Let's focus on the restaurants. I'm going to come there. Let's knock restaurants. I'm going to do some winemaker dinners there, distiller dinners, and every house pour which we get in my market work. And this month, $100. So you can use some for random because that's what the business needs at that particular time. So you throw that. Then comes the point of sale and merchandising incentives. So this is also something I've done where, all right, you have this great job. You got 25 stores stocking 10Ks, beautiful displays, but let's decorate this displays well. Does every display have my shelf talker and a case card? Does every display has 0 empty bottles? And can you please repack that case and put my bottles back and clean the dust? Whatever it takes. So use them as your merchandising team to decorate your stuff again. Your stuff has gone in the ground level. Tell them that, convince the retailer to put it back on the eye level shelf again, and so on. But play that point of sale and merchandising game in that month, for example. You just say, in that, you can sometimes give by time that, okay, I'll give you $50 for your 2 hours. Can you go this Friday into this 12 accounts? So that's 6 hours. I'll give you $150 and just merchandise your accounts. And if you can't travel. And the classic in-store tasting and sampling incentives. So if you can't go to the market, you just say that any account so you back it up this way. Any account that you sell 10 cases, you're going to get this $100. But I want you, John and Sally, to also go in Friday and Saturday, and I'll give you $70 for those 2 hours to do in-store tastings as well. Can you please do that as well? All right.
Okay.
So you bundle things up and make sure that they are just hooked with your brand, and all incentives are used to drive depletions as well.
Yeah. Great. I appreciate that. That's a whole bunch of ideas I hadn't thought of. I appreciate that.
And all this can be measured and monitored through depletion reports from your wholesalers, which should show the rep name and so on. And
I should be requesting those depletion reports then from the
distributors. 100%. That's your Bible, basically. That's your performance report, and not just for knowing how they do. You should know who are your top retail accounts, because when you do market work, coming to your market work question, what you want to do is first have your 70 accounts planned, which are you going to see. 25 would be your top 25 customers. You have to go and say hello and thank them as well, right? So you should know who are your top 25. You should know who are the worst 25. You should go and say, before they start saying this brand sucks, you should go to the worst and then the next new 25.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Cool. Thank you. In your opinion, what is the best city to import from Mexico? So, I mean, needless to say, Hispanic population, California, Florida. Look at, simply Google, that right now, The local community is going to support the local, categories for sure. So that is one. Second is maximum impact, right? So that is a very big question. Like you can have Taylor Swift talk about your brand and that you will get impact, or you can start building an impact at each retail level. So it depends on how you are coming in the market and what kind of impact you want to do. But let's say my practical advice is start creating impact at the customer level first. Let impress them first, create an impact in that store first, create an impact in the restaurant first, then worrying about the America or the market or the California, right? So if you are selling in ABC liquor stores, create an impact that, and then have a strategy around that. And the question would be, how do I create an impact there? And then there are a lot of things that we just spoke about, like you do store tastings, you become a likable supplier, you merchandise, you bring in customers for that customer, and you sort of start creating an impact on your brand. So when someone walks into that brand, your brand is very visible. And then a classic way to create an impact in a store is put a front 25 case stack. So even if you make loss there, but that is a great way of creating an impact and advertisement for your brand. The whole town will start talking about your brand, and that is a good impactful play as well. What price should we enter the market? Again, a big question, but going very fast here. So suppliers and brand should work at 35% gross margin, keep 10% for trade marketing. So you have to make sure that 25% net you want to make, and then you use 10% to sort of do all this marketing things that drive depletions. Importers should make minimum 30%. Distributors should make minimum 30%, and retailers should make minimum 40% when we are talking about a new brand. The moment you fall into the categories of Yellowtail or Bacardi or Grey Goose, you can talk about 25 to 30%. But right now you are a new brand, you don't have any consumer pulling power. So, when the stakes change, you can have a little less margins for retailers. If you are, a couple of other notes, if you are a premium brand, okay, so if you, in this case, for example, I'm assuming it's the premium mezcal brand. So I studied your brand a little bit. I think what I did was simply searched for premium mezcal drizzly, premium mezcal total wine, premium mezcal bevmo. So you do some market research and you see the reality of the market, right? And you will be amazed that at 25 to 45, 90% of the brands fall into that category. Now, the question is, can you afford to hit these numbers and be at $44? Then do that. But, if you really want to work at 60% and do less sales, meaning you just have 100, you just want to sell 1,000 cases, then you build up your margin more, right? So these are some, mathematical and reverse engineering questions where how much you have to sell, what is a competitive pricing? What are the competitors saying? And then you sort of have a price elasticity, meaning go as much high as you can when you start, because these things don't really happen that you cannot raise a price, because soon, you will be said no, basically, the moment you start raising prices, unless you're a big brand. I would personally, in your case, when I did the research, would aim at 80 to 60% at least. I would have a lot of margin, because I'm assuming that you don't want to sell much. It's 2,000 case ultra premium tequila at $60, for example. So I would for sure aim at higher margins, because I know, you got to do the calculation, like 1,600 cases, I'm making $50,000 versus 1,200 cases, I'm making $50,000. And is 1,200 cases going to be as easy to sell as 1,600 cases, and so on, right? So I hope you're understanding, but it's pretty much, you go maximum pricing at the best execution strategy, the pre-sale strategy. So here's one last one I'll cover, and then we can wrap this up. So how do you pre-sale when you become attractive to a distributor? You become attractive to a distributor when you become important to the distributor. The same goes with the retailers. The moment they start making money off your brand, that's when you become important, and the same goes with the distributor. So how do you become, let's say, how do you do pre-sales before approaching to the distributor? That's another question as well. What you do is, you have to these are the main things what your distributors want, that your product will sell, that carrying your product will give them a competitive advantage, and that your company isn't going to dissolve or go bankrupt if they start building your brand. All right, so you do this way where you start asking the distributor that I'm going to go in the market and start hitting the doors and saying hello to the retail accounts. You need 25 pre-commitment letters from the retailers in that market. So for example, that's called letter of intent, which is simply a pre-written note, where you ask a retailer or a restaurant or a sommelier that you're going to buy this one case if this was available in your state from ABC distributor. You can ask the retailer as you're knocking doors that who is the preferred distributor they want to work with, and the maximum answer that you get, let's say ABC distributor, is the one you go and say that, hey, I have 25 letter of intents of 25 cases or 50 cases, that are ready to do business with you. Could you start taking my product? And I just did this because I wanted to show you, that this is a pre-sale and this is a sort of partnership that I want to do business with. You get a pallet in, you immediately deplete your pallet, you fulfill your promises, and you go back to that retail account and say, thank you. You start building a relationship with this distributor. And by the moment you walk out of that, you took your flight back, you will have another purchase order. And that's how you start sort of the easiest and the guaranteed way to start a distribution relationship, which is in your control, is to sort of get 25 pre-sale retail accounts. Okay. And during this exercise, you've also demonstrated to the distributor that your products will sell and are selling. And during this process, you've also yourself, curated your spiel, which you will have to educate to the sales team. Because when you scale your distribution network, what you would want is an FAQ sheet for the retailers. What are the 10 main questions retailers are going to ask, sommeliers are going to ask for your brand? What should your elevator 30 seconds pitch? All these things you do while you're knocking your first 25 retail accounts. So this is a biz dev MBA for your brand. Like, this is literally the best thing that you could do, before launching or approaching distributors, which is knocking your own 25, getting 25 accounts yourself into the market that you want a distributor, because that will really make your real sales documents.
Yeah, I can see. So I'll ask the question. I see that attendees
Sure.
are also here. So from Anthony, that his brand has won a silver medal at Bartender Spirits Award. So if they win such medals, how they can leverage to get more distributors and retailers?
Cool. So Bartender Spirits Awards in this case is a very easy trade sell because it's trade only buyers, right? So I would have a sell sheet with judges' faces and my brand and my score, and I would literally have use that as a door opener, saying we won from Bartender Spirits Awards and this were the judges, and I would show off the judges' faces because they are the trade buyers, and I would say, these are the accounts that, like yourself, like if you're knocking door in bar, for example, I would tell the bartender that these are exactly your peers who have evaluated these products for the bars. I would love to have your 2 minutes, time that you can at least taste the product. You can go through the pricing, and if it makes sense for you, because the way this Bartender Spirits Awards judging process works is exactly how you buy for your business, which is by price, by package, by quality, by mixability, versatility, and so on, right? So you sort of close the loop in this way. You put the things while you're pouring, you just put the brochure and then you talk about that, and then the same goes with the distributors. For the distributors, their accounts are these bars and retailers, for example, especially bars for Bartender Spirits Awards. So you again show them that these products have been awarded and credited by the customers of yours who really are trying to, get the product that you're trying to get in front of. So I would use that angle as well. And then some other tactical plays I would do is I would actually, cold call or find that bar, the judge, some of the judges or bartenders. I would do that on LinkedIn, and I would say that, hey, which are the distributors you buy from? I would show excitement that we won, 88 points from Bartender Spirits Award. You were the judge there. Thank you so much. Give me some 5 or 6 names, John. Where who are some good houses? And then I would say, hey, John just told me about your name. I would refer by John. He was the judge at Bartender Spirits Awards. I would love to have an appointment, and we've won it here. So summary here is you yourself have to create a lot of enthusiasm and excitement. And when I got 84 points from Wine Enthusiast as well, or Wine Spectator, I was like shouting in the town, I got 84 points, right? So even if it's silver medal, guys, it doesn't matter. It's the excitement that they entertain. It is that you are so excited, even on bronze medal or silver or on your brand or nothing, they just can't say no to you because you're so excited. So I would use that angle.
So we have got one question. I think Nathan is already in the queue as a panelist. So his couple of questions were in the presentation, but he's asking one more question that you can answer right now. And that is,
hello. Hey, yeah, so we do about 40,000 cases in our home state, and then, we do another probably 20 to 30,000 in the surrounding states in our region. We're in the Midwest. We're based in Missouri. Yeah, and we're an established brand. We've been around for a while. And last year, due to different issues with COVID and inflation, we had to up our price a little bit on, all the different tiers by about $1 retail.
Okay, so you lost some volume into this states because you think that it's because of the price, for example.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. So I think just sharing a few other things so you have a broader perspective. I think a lot of brands, a lot of companies, everyone increased prices, to be honest. So I think, and also I really personally, this is just one guy's view. I think that $1 more means nothing much if you had heavy programming involved to move the cases, in the trade, like the incentives, the allowances, the programming, and the whole thing, right? Consumers can digest $1 more, but if you think that end consumer got shifted, then it's a bigger problem. That you had two exact, like someone was at 34 on absolute, and now whatever XYZ, Smirnoff is at 33, and they just switched because they just want the vodka, right? That is a tough problem. But if you don't have any like exact ABC competitive brand, which is just going to be switched your actual consumer, I think you don't want to go back and lower the prices because you've come this far. You don't want to do that. What you want to do is really go back and into the trade allowances and programming and do the basics. I'm sure you said you are an established brand. I'm sure you've tried a lot of things. You've tried in-store tastings to sustain that price and drive depletions and sales. This is a problem which has to be fixed slowly. So there is no overnight solution, but you will have to sort of have a strong depletion report. What I would do is, figure out which accounts have seen drops. I would figure out that you've lost complete placements there, or sales have drawn, or people have just stopped reordering that because the sales the last month was very slow, that no more next order for that brand. So you need to go back there and sort of offer each of those stores a store tasting and try to go back and build a brand. And maybe you can do a little bit of test. You think that, all right, John, maybe if you think that it's because of $1 more, let's try $7.99 again, But I want you to understand, and I want you to write that it's on sale. Regular price $8.99, sale price $7.99. So maybe you try this in some of your sample accounts and see that if, that was the reason. I'm just trying to figure out live here and what comes to my mind. So please excuse if I'm a little vague there as well. Have a permanent price engraved at your real price that you have already, but start showing sale pricing, what retailers do, and see if that works. I think going back will be a tough thing, I'm sure, financially for you as well, and not possible. So I wouldn't go that line where you just go back to the distribution network or your retail network. Okay, your new FOB price is just this. I don't think so. You should play more at kickbacks. I'll give you kickback of $12. I'll give you kickback of $1. So go back, do an entire year of kickbacks or depletion allowances, right? Kickbacks, I'm sure where, okay, on depletion, I'll give a credit note of $120 if you sell this much, and so on.